Hello guys and gals, me Mudahar, and today we're talking about that SNES Classic that's coming out now. Unlike the NES Classic, which is a system that I actually wanted to get, this is a system that I actually have no intention of getting. And let me tell you why, alright? So first of all, I'll tell you what the system is. For those of you who don't know, it's an $80 system, US of course, that's coming out on the 29th of September, alright? Right now you could pre-order it, not really, because we'll get to that in a second. The system comes with like 21 games on it, preloaded SNES games. A lot of them are actually really good. It comes out with emulated form, save states, everything basically that the original NES had. And then it has Star Fox 2, which has never been released before, but the ROM has always floated around. You could always play this game anyways. It has 2 controllers on it, and alongside that, it's got all the games are really nice. Final Fantasy, 3, you got your Link to the Past, you got everything. It's a system that I could get, if the following hadn't have happened. What happened? The scalpers came by and bought every single system, and now you can pre-order it. Right now, I'm looking at eBay, and the highest selling I've seen this go around is $400, but it's been floating around at the $300 to $400 price range. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is just confirmed pre-orders at this point in time. Alright, this isn't the actual console, you are buying the pre-orders. It's gotten so bad to the point that people are using bots to instantly buy the system as Nintendo puts them up. And I can always make the joke, is Nintendo allergic to money? But motherfucker, this is not the only time it has happened. To this day, you cannot get a Switch in certain places. That system is still facing some production issues, and Nintendo has already tacked on an SNES system with them. Now, I could find the system maybe somewhat worth the $100, $200 price range if you could put your old SNES cartridges in it, play it. Even then, it's pushing that price tag. I wouldn't get the system because, ladies and gentlemen, you can buy retro Pi systems. You can buy Raspberry Pis, load retro Pi onto them, put in like thousands upon thousands of ROMs over Nintendo's paltry 21 ROMs in their system, and play them even better than what the system is offering you at. So already, the system to me is dead on arrival. But it was an interesting system. It was catered towards people who grew up with the SNES. I grew up with the SNES. A lot of these games I would love to replay on the HDMI, on an HD TV, all properly, given the seal of approval by Nintendo themselves. And for $60, I wouldn't consider this a bad deal. I would find it to be rather interesting. Sorry, not 60, $80. I would find it to be a pretty good deal. You have a nice piece of machinery that you could, put somewhere. It looks a little novel, and you could play games out of it. You could use the SNES controllers, plug them into your PC or Mac and play them on the emulators themselves using actual SNES controllers that are wired. But alas, we don't really get that. What we have over here is something you could already do if you have a customized firmware PlayStation 3, Raspberry Pi, an Android phone, hell, even an iPhone if you jailbreak it. So what Nintendo is offering is nowhere interesting. This is basically just a closed-down Raspberry Pi that Nintendo has put their own system onto, preloaded with 21 ROMs, one of them being Star Fox 2, which is already playable. In fact, I played it years ago on a live stream, so it's not like that's a hot commodity. People who wanted to play that badly have already played that. But the issue here comes into the scalping problem, and this is one that ultimately has to be talked about, because I feel like Nintendo is greatly profiting from this in some way, shape, or form. Now, what I'm saying is conspiracy theory ridden, so like I said, take what I say with a grain of salt, but I almost feel like Nintendo is behind on the scalping bandwagon, where they put a system up for $80 and instantly it gets pre-ordered and sold out right in the pre-order. It almost never happens for anything else. Even when the PS4 was coming out and the Xbox One was coming out, and these systems were still, raising hell in stores everywhere. The PS4, even when pre-orders ran out, Sony was quick enough to shift around products, send them over, and allow more pre-orders really quickly. They were willing to sell every single PlayStation they could, even if they had to make a bunch of them and contract anybody they can. And Sony, for a company that's faced billions of dollars in loss, they had the money to throw around and do this. Nintendo, they have a whole war chest, so why don't they pony up the cash, get some people, get more manufacturers and build these products? They don't do that. What they do is they essentially sell a very limited supply, so when they do run out of these supplies during a pre-order, it makes it look like there's so much demand for them. In fact, this was very notorious to do for toys. You know, what toy manufacturers would do is that they would sell a very small supply that they would build. They would say that it's sold out, and news would spread out that this is a hot item that's being sold out. So demand would artificially raise, and that's what Nintendo's doing. And it works. It does work for the Switch. You know, it's a system that every time a little trickle comes out from their manufacturing plants, it sells out instantaneously. And if you keep a steady stream of that, you're going to sell systems at a very rapid rate, and it looks good for business. Nintendo, while they're doing something that's, I guess, interesting for business, where it looks good on the reports and everything, whatever, it's ultimately a thing where they don't make as much money as they really could if they just kept on pumping these systems out and giving them to their, consumers. And second of all, by doing this, is just really shitty to gamers who have been waiting for this kind of stuff too, because as it caters towards nostalgia, people who want to get their hands on it are not willing to pay $300 to scalpers to do it. Which is why, to me, scalpers always seem like people who were like the scum of the consumer world, where they bought a bunch of things and they jacked up the prices 10 times and they sold it to people because they knew people wanted it, and they would pay the price that would essentially become the standard because every scalper would do it. It's things that have happened with concert tickets forever. People would buy all the tickets through bots, and they would sell these at like 6-7 time markup, and people would have to buy it because they'd have no other option. Over here, I almost feel like Nintendo profits off of it, where they release it, they sell it to their own sub-network of scalpers, and the scalpers go out, jack up the price like crazy, and ultimately it comes back to Nintendo in some way, shape, or form through some kind of a tax. Of course, that's me talking out of my ass right now, coming up with a conspiracy theory, but to me at this point, it's about the only logical thing I can think of. You know these products are going to sell. You know that you're making pure profit on things like this, because it's not like creating a Super SNES classic with 21 ROMs loaded onto it is really hurting you for money. In fact, you're making a shit ton of profit off one of these devices per sale. So it begs the question why Nintendo doesn't go out of their way to create a bunch of these devices for the time that they're selling it and ship them out. The last time they released the NES Classic, they ended up being so far behind on selling these products that they eventually canceled the whole thing, and now those prices are rightfully jacked up because now it's a rare system, I guess, in some way, shape, or form. Even though to me, it's a stupid thing to go out and buy an NES Classic or an SNES Classic, when in today's day and age, the whole market for this kind of stuff is dead. If you ask me, you go out and you get yourself a CFW PS3. In fact, some of the videos that I do where I play GBA games like Grand Theft Auto Advance or Max Payne, for example, I'm playing it on a modded PS3 using RetroArch. So nobody can tell you that playing that RetroArch system, any kind, or any emulator on the PC, whether it be SNES 9X or OpenEMU on the Mac, is any different than playing an SNES game on this. The only difference is that this was a novel concept that for $80, somebody like me could say, I'll part money with that, and, I'll have an SNES that I can, play 2 players with a friend and use the controllers later on for anything else. It wasn't a bad deal money-wise. You were getting some really good games, and you were getting 2 controllers that you could have potentially used in other, situations. But here, you don't get any of that. You don't get anything like that. Nowadays, what's happened is as soon as this thing goes up for sale, people use bots to quickly buy it, and then they jack up the prices like crazy. And at this point, I have to say that Nintendo probably has some stake in this entire situation. It just doesn't make any sense to me how they couldn't. Because it's same thing has happened to NES Classic, the same thing has happened to an extent on the Wii U, where at times they would just release limited amounts, whatever bundle it could be, and that worked for that to an extent. With the Nintendo Switch, same type of deal. Some stores get very limited quantity shipping. If you go to any of these stores, you check with how much that they're getting shipped is absolutely minimal compared to what other competition is available. And same thing is going to happen over here. You will not be able to get the system if you're a regular consumer like me, because already it's sold out. People are using bots. We're not as committed as some of these scalpers are. The scalpers ultimately win, and Nintendo, which I would think would do any form of combat against this, doesn't do anything. They don't plan to do anything. In fact, I almost feel like they embrace this mentality, because At the end, you'll have articles not talking about the system, but they talk about how to get the system on a pre-order or buy it day one or something stupid like that. We're talking more about how to acquire a system than we are talking about the system itself. And I think ultimately it plays into Nintendo's hand, so will I be getting an SNES Classic or anything like this from Nintendo? No, because they haven't sorted out how to fix up the scalping issue, and frankly what they're selling is already available in some way, shape, or form. Would you buy a product that is half the price of this? $35, you can mod it yourself? Or would you buy this with 21 games versus something we can put thousands of ROMs into? At the end, the morality and legality subject we can talk about in a different video, but the thing is, for a system like this, it's not worth the $300 or $400 asking price that's going for it. Nintendo isn't doing anything about it. But I want to ask what you all think about this scalping issue that's really taking hold as time goes on. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just like if you dislike it. This is me, Mutahar, and I'm out.